Cindy, okay here with the timer?
Yes.
And then I think the last one is an air horn. Is that what you use? No?
Or a
Something like
hook.
that. Hey, Maureen, how are you? What was the breaking news? Florida State University shooting. 4 hospitalized? Yeah. Okay. Are we waiting for that to play out? Gotcha. All right, just let me know when you're getting ready to run the open. We'll get going. Stand by. And then there were 2. Doesn't seem that long ago that we had 5 folks here on the stage at the Omaha Press Club. Good afternoon, and welcome to First Alert 6 and the first mayoral debate between John Ewing and Jean Stothert. This is the time you can be loud. You can be loud. Yes. Such a polite crowd. This next hour is going to be fantastic. All right, let's meet the candidates. First, the challenger, the current Douglas County Treasurer and retired Deputy Police Chief, John Ewing. Thanks for being here.
Good afternoon.
The incumbent, a nurse by trade. She's been Omaha's mayor for the last 12 years, Jean Stothert.
Thank you.
Now, First Alert 6 wants to recognize the Omaha Press Club, the Education Committee, the League of Women Voters, Greater Omaha for sponsoring this. The League is also helping me with the timing. I can only do multitask so much. So, Cindy, thank you for those time cues. All right, let's have a spirited debate. Let the public know your similarities, your differences. As for the live audience, you were great. You listened well. Be respectful. Let the candidates do the talking. Let's begin. A coin toss determined the order. There is a closing statement, but no opening. And the first question goes to Mayor Stothert. We're 2.5 weeks removed from the primary. You led a crowded field, had 2,500 more votes than Mr. Ewing. But the other 2 long-term Democrats had nearly 23,000 votes between them. We know turnout will be higher for the general, but what did you learn from those results? And in a city with more Democrats registered to vote, do you consider yourself vulnerable? You have a minute and a half.
You know, I think with every election that I've been in, and this is my 4th for mayor, we work really, really hard, and we don't take anything for granted. In the last elections, the first one I was in, it was a 5-way primary, and I had less than the percentage of votes that I had this time. So our work during the primary and the general is to get out there with the public like we're doing, knocking on doors and gathering all those other votes. I do get a lot of Democrat votes. I do get a lot of independent votes. And I do get a lot of Republican votes. So my goal is to get out there, get the voter turnout up. It was pretty miserable in the primary. There was 25%. We expected about 35%. But get people out there to vote and make sure that we get our message out and our positive message out. And so I am doing the same thing that I have done in the last 3 elections. And you know, we've always won the primary, and I've always won the general by doing that. So spending a lot of time out in the public, making sure that we get our positive message out and gathering those votes that the other opponents had in the primary. And that's what we do.
Mr. Ewing, you have a minute and a half. What did you learn from the primary results?
What I learned from the primary is that 65% of the voters wanted a new mayor. I believe I'm that choice. I've been the highest person in terms of total votes in 2022 by 15,000 votes in Douglas County. I also had the highest total in 2018 by 2,000 votes. I believe I'm very popular with the people of this community because I deliver great government for them. That's what I've done for 43 years. That's what I'm going to do as the next mayor of Omaha. I am going to deliver great government. I am going to make sure we do a much better job with the basic services that we provide in this community, because I believe those are quality of life issues. And when your streets, your parks, public safety being understaffed, that creates a problem for the people of this community who want great service. We're going to continue to work hard like we always have. I've always said I will never be outworked, and that's going to be the case this time as well. I'm going to work every day like I have been for over a year now, and we are going to win this election.
Gene Stothert, 30 seconds.
Sure. You know, winning in 2022 for the Douglas County Treasurer is a lot different than winning for the mayor of Omaha. If you look at my last election 4 years ago, I won by about 67%. And so, you know, I have won each of the mayor's races that I have run in. I've won the primary, and we're doing the same thing we have always done. We're getting our positive message out, what we have done, what our vision was, what we have accomplished, and then what my vision is for the future in detail. That's what people want to know. But when you're an incumbent, you certainly can run on the positive record that you have.
John Ewing, 30 seconds.
People vote for people they like. People vote for people that they believe are competent. And they've continually voted for me throughout my electoral career to the tune of over 700,000 votes while I've been running for office. I believe they'll continue to vote for me, and I believe I'm going to win this election on May 13th.
This next question is for John Ewing. During our primary debate on this stage, you told voters it would be disastrous to stop the streetcar, that breaking contracts would hurt taxpayers. Help me understand what would be different with the Ewing administration. Who would use the streetcar? What are the benefits of it? Is it free? What's next? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you, Brian. Well, the first thing I believe is, as mayor, you are an ambassador for the city of Omaha. You are responsible for the image of the city of Omaha. To break all of those contracts would be disastrous for the image of the city as well as the business of the city. So as I saw this streetcar being rushed beyond being able to stop it or put it to a vote, I had to make a decision as a leader to say it can't be stopped. Now we have to ensure that it's going to be the best possible use of our resources in this community as possible. So what I would do is ensure that we get as much development around the streetcar as we can, because then the tax increment financing and all of those things would have been worth it from a standpoint of increasing development in the city of Omaha. So that's number one. Number two, I believe we've got to look at how we get that streetcar from where it is now with no real true destinations to be able to get it to the baseball stadium, to be able to get it to the CHI Center, to be able to get it to the airport, to get it to the old market, and to get it to the zoo, and have legs going from South Omaha and North Omaha so that we can utilize that fully.
Gene Stothert, minute and a half.
Thank you. You know, several years ago, at the urging of the city of Omaha, the Chamber of Commerce created the Urban Core Committee to really study development in downtown and midtown. When they came out with their strategic plan, the number one recommendation was to build a streetcar. Now, the streetcar was not rushed. We've been talking in Omaha about a streetcar for 20 years. But that was their plan. And I said, I understood the value. I understood it will be a catalyst for economic development. But give me a plan, a funding model that we will not have to add new taxes or we will not have to raise taxes. And they did. And we took it really a step further, had a company out of Baltimore come in here for 9 months and study along the route what the possible economic development could happen along that route. It is a catalyst for economic development is what it is. We have a funding model that will not cost the taxpayers any money. It won't raise your taxes. We won't add a new tax. But the economic development around that area where the corridor is, it was estimated to be about $2 billion in the first 15 years. Before we even put the rails in, we've already had $1.5 billion worth of development along the rail. Now the estimates are $4 billion. The streetcar is for economic development, but it also will bring you in, around, and out of downtown. The other thing is I've already applied for and received a grant to study another route, taking it north up to the airport and possibly in the future then down south too. So this is the initial route, and again, there's possibilities for the future to expand it.
Mr. Ewing, 30 seconds for rebuttal.
One of the biggest issues with the streetcar that I still stand on today is during the 2017 election cycle, there were a lot of indications from the current mayor that the streetcar would be put to a vote. Now, you can parse words if you want to, but that is what most of the people of this community believed, and they have not been able to take it to a vote, and that is one of the reasons you have so much resistance to the streetcar.
Gene Stothert, 30 seconds.
Sure, in 2017, I never said that we would put the streetcar to a vote, period. I said that if taxes were raised, those who are paying for it should have a chance to vote for it. There is no taxes being raised, and that's why I didn't put it to a vote. General obligation bonds are not being used to fund the streetcar. It is being funded by the private development along the route. There are a lot of things that we do in the city of Omaha that we don't put to a public vote. The ballpark, the riverfront parks, the Dodge Expressway, all of those things that the city of Omaha has done that is paid for differently than general obligation bonds did not go to a vote of the people.
Gene Stothert, this question starts with you. You're a Republican. You've said many times you vote Republican. In 2020, you hired a deputy chief of staff for diversity, equity, and inclusion. You said the more our government looks like our city, the better. President Trump has said the only thing that matters is merit and has taken away DEI program access across the country. The governor celebrated UNL closing its diversity and inclusion offices. How do you square that?
Sure. I did hire a deputy chief of staff for diversity, equity, and inclusion because I wanted Omaha to be a more welcoming community, and I want all people in Omaha to feel welcome and included. In fact, he's here today. When I became mayor, I said I will be the mayor for everyone. And I think over the last 12 years, I've showed that. I said I didn't care if you were a Democrat, Independent, Republican. I didn't care the color of your skin. I didn't care what your age was. I would be the mayor for everybody, and I think I've shown that I have done that. What the president has said, though, is that he feels like people should be hired on merit, not on diversity, equity, or inclusion. And we do that. The city of Omaha has never hired based on race or gender. We hire every single department, every single position that we have. We have a job description, it's posted. We either test for it or interview for it, and the person that has the highest merit and the best qualifications is what's hired with the city of Omaha. Having said that, we will not break the law either. I'm not going to be a mayor of Omaha saying we're going to break the law. This position, my deputy chief of staff for DEI, is not funded by grant money, is not funded by federal money. He's funded with the general fund. And I want him to continue the job of making the city of Omaha a more welcoming, diverse, our employees with the city of Omaha. But I got to stress that we are not hiring based on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are hiring based on merit, and we've always done that with the city.
John Ewing, a minute and a half.
Thank you. I am going to always be a champion for inclusion in the city of Omaha. I believe it's critical that we are a welcoming city, that every individual in this city feels as if they belong, that every individual in this city feels that they have an opportunity to live their greatest life right here in Omaha, Nebraska. That will always be my commitment. That's been my commitment for 43 years. And it will continue as your next mayor. What I believe is that we have to stand for what's right at all times, not be part of the partisan politics that you see in Washington, D.C. I will not bow to those type of politics, no matter where they're coming from, because I represent the people of this community, and I will do everything I can to be a champion for the people of this community and be inclusive and be intentional about how we build this city and how we welcome people to this city and how we retain people in this city, because that's just the right thing to do.
Jean Stothert, 30 seconds.
Sure. Again, I have always said I am going to be the mayor for everyone, and I think I've showed that. I don't care what your political party is. Several weeks ago, though, my opponent was at a rally at Memorial Park saying, I am part of the resistance, vote Democrat, vote blue dot. Now, that's not saying that you are going to be nonpartisan. That's saying vote blue dot or vote Democrat. I would never do that. I don't stand up there at any rally and say, just vote Republican, because I am the mayor for Omaha, and Omaha is a diverse community, and I said before, I will represent everyone.
John Ewing, 30 seconds.
I believe at that rally I said Democrat, Independent, and Republican, so it might be good to tell the truth. Secondly, what I said was when I see things like damaging our Social Security, damaging our veterans and other things like that, I am going to be the resistance to those things because I value our veterans and what they've done for this country. I also value our seniors and what they've done for this country as well. So I will always be passionate and stand for them.
This next question goes to John Ewing. First Alert 6 reported last night that a small number of students across the Nebraska university system had their visas revoked. What's your message to Omaha's immigrant and refugee populations?
First of all, I'm very disappointed to hear that. I don't know what the purpose of all of this is when we're taking visas from students in this country who are here and who add value to our country and add value to our state. Secondly, I would say to the people of this community that I will always stand with you. I will always be your ally because I know the value of everyone in this community. If you look at the city of Omaha, Nebraska, most of our growth has come from immigration and also birth. We have not been attracting a lot of people to this city. As a matter of fact, we're growing much slower than cities like Des Moines, Iowa. So we have to be willing to do whatever we can to continue to have a robust economy that will allow for our businesses to expand, allow for our businesses to have the employees they need, and allow for the people of this community to have a great life. I stand by that. I always will. I will stand with them.
Jean Stothert, your message to Omaha's immigrant and refugee populations.
Sure. We have been very friendly to our immigrants and our refugees in the city of Omaha and want to make sure that they receive the services that we have available, that they're connected with the agencies that provide for those services. And we've always been involved in that and trying to be as welcome as we possibly can. I will say it is not true that Omaha is only growing by, though, their immigrants and their refugees and the birth rate. The birth rate is down right now. Omaha is growing because new businesses are coming in and more young professionals are coming in to work in those businesses and be employees. And also the young professionals and the students that are graduating from our universities are now staying here. That old concept of what are you going to do about brain drain, we are not seeing that anymore in Omaha, and that's why we are growing. Father Hendrickson, the president of Creighton University, just announced that 50% of the out-of-state students that graduate from Creighton stay here in Nebraska, and 80% of the Nebraska students that graduate from Creighton stay here in Nebraska. So that's brain gain or brain retain, and we are seeing that, and that's what's growing our population. With the last census, we moved from the 40th largest city in the country to the 39th largest city in the country, and it was just announced recently that our 5-county metro area now has reached over the 1 million mark of population. So we are growing. We are not decreasing in our population, and that's because it's a great place to work and it's a great place to live.
John Ewing, 30 seconds.
If you talk to the business leaders in this community, they will tell you that we are growing about half the rate of cities like Des Moines, Iowa. If we had continued to grow and added just the number of jobs that Des Moines, Iowa has generated, we would have 29,000 more jobs and we would have about $1.7 billion of additional payroll in this community. So we may be growing, but we're growing slower than our counterparts across the Midwest.
Gene Stothert, 30 seconds.
Sure, and I don't pay much attention to what's going on in Des Moines. I pay attention to what's going on in Omaha. And the business leaders in our community, which the Greater Omaha Chamber represents, who has endorsed me because we have worked so closely with them about business, they have reports that said our jobs in Omaha are twice as much in the last 10 years as they were in the 10 years previous. We're not losing jobs, we're gaining jobs because we are gaining new residents and more and young professionals too.
This next question begins with Gene Stothert. What good ideas have you seen from other cities to incorporate into Omaha?
What good ideas, there's a lot of things that when I used to have meetings with other mayors, we would meet and we would talk about things that we could share. One of the things that I copied after the mayor of Albuquerque that I'm particularly proud of, and we're growing with it, is a program that he had that was called Way to Work, or There's a Better Way program, is what he called it. I created a Way to Work program in Omaha and modeled after what he did in Albuquerque. And that is a program that our partners is the Salvation Army, and that is getting people that are homeless, that are looking to get out of that spiral of being homeless. They're looking for a job, they're looking for opportunities, and we employ them. And we employ them, they have good jobs with the city of Omaha, and they work 3 days a week, and the other 2 days a week, they learn skills to be a good employee. I thought, when I talked to the mayor of Albuquerque and he told me about that program, I thought it was so good. And I thought this was something that we could do in Omaha to really dig in and help our homeless situation. So that's one good example. Other things that we have traveled around, we have talked about public transportation. We've talked about developing downtown areas. We talked about urban cores. A lot of information that I have with other mayors and meetings that we have with other mayors is something that we just do and we share.
John Ewing, what good ideas have you seen from other cities that you think could work here?
I've been very fortunate to travel with the Empowerment Network to a number of cities. One of the things I've seen is that communities that engage with their nonprofit organizations and build consensus about the agenda have been very successful in building more collaborative partnerships. So that's number one. Number two, I've seen a lot of these cities ensure that they work toward eliminating food deserts in their communities. And that's something I intend to do as well. Number three is I've seen a lot of efforts around public transportation that are significantly better than what we're doing in Omaha, Nebraska, when it comes to getting people to where they need to go and be able to do that in a timely manner. And then the last thing that I will talk about is early in the time of the Empowerment Network, when I was still a deputy chief, we did some things where we looked at going to other cities to see what they were doing to prevent gang violence. And they were doing gang interruption, where when a shooting or something of that nature occurred, they actually had people reach out to the rival gang, go to the hospital, and try to keep violence from erupting and having retaliatory shootings. That is something we implemented here and have been able to help with some of the gang violence and reducing gun violence.
Gene Stothert, 30 seconds.
Talking about collaborative partnerships, that is something I'm really, really proud of with the city of Omaha, that we have developed so many public-private partnerships that when I meet with other mayors in other cities, they're just really interested in how we are able to do this. And they'll say, when they have a big program, they may get a little help from public-private partnerships. But take for example, the Riverfront Parks. It's a $400 million park. The city put in $60 million, the rest was private. You look at the new state-of-art library at 72nd Dodge, $158 million library. The city put in 20, and we will own and operate it. That's examples of some great public-private partnerships that we have already developed, and we need to keep those going.
John Ewing, 30 seconds.
When you look at the new park that we have downtown, one of the things you have to look at is we have that new park for a reason. And that is because the city neglected the former Jean Leahy Mall and did not take care of that facility properly. If you look at even today, the people who partnered with the city did not trust the city to maintain that park, and they have $5 million a year set aside to actually maintain the park. So there is not a lot of trust when it comes to maintenance of our facilities.
John Ewing, you're next on the clock. You spent 25 plus years as a police officer, rising to the...
A rebuttal there?
You had the rebuttal. Do you want to? You can. Do you have something to say, and then we can go back
Well,
and forth? Yeah, go ahead.
I do. I want to say that what my opponent just said is absolutely false. You know, it's not a lack of trust that the private sector and the philanthropists would put in $400 million for a park. And we did that park not because the Jean Leahy Mall was neglected. That wasn't it at all. That's why we combined the Jean Leahy Mall, Heartland of America Park, and Lewis and Clark Landing to make something that will bring people downtown every single day of the year. Right now, over 5 million people have gone to those parks, and they are safe. We have Mecca running the parks, not because of a lack of trust, but it's the same reason we have Mecca running the Arena Convention Center. They have the skills to run these city-owned facilities, and they do it well.
Mr. Ewing.
I stand by my statement.
You're next on the clock. You spent 25 plus years as an officer, retiring as a deputy chief. I know you've been critical of the mayor and the police chief's plan for staffing, a shortage that has happened in a lot of big cities across the country. At the same time, other cities are asking Omaha Police, and you mentioned this with Empowerment Network, about best practices. How can they take what we do to reduce violent crime and improve police-community relations? Do you not agree with that?
What part are you asking me if I agree with?
So if other cities are coming to Omaha for best practices, and then you don't believe what they're doing is then working with the officers and the plans that they have to hire officers?
I've never criticized the Omaha Police Department for their effectiveness. What I've said is that they are understaffed by 130 officers, and that I'm the only person in this race who's ever recruited police officers. And I believe I have the skill set to help them be able to recruit police officers and get to full staffing so that they can really focus on community policing and building relationships with the community, because that's when policing is most effective, when you're doing policing with people in partnership and you're listening to their priorities, much like what we did when I started the Crime Prevention Covenant with Teresa Negron almost 20 years ago, where we actually sat with the people of the community, asked them what they wanted to see from the Omaha Police Department, and then made those priorities what we worked for to get violence reduction, also get improved community police relationships. And that's what I'm referring to when I talk about the police department being understaffed. If you can get up to full staff, then you can continue to do that work more effectively.
Gene Stothert, 90 seconds.
There was a time about a year and a half ago that over 30 cities across the country were calling and coming to Omaha asking what we are doing and what we had done to decrease the crime rate in Omaha like we have. Last year, violent crime was down 21%. All crime was down 17%. And it is true. Our number of budgeted police officers are down. They're down about 115 officers. But I will take you back a little bit. 17, 18, 19, we were almost fully staffed. And we were almost fully staffed after I added to the budget 102 new police officers. That's what a mayor does. The mayor works with the police chief, creates the budget, works with all chiefs, fire chief, police chief. What do they need? What do they need in their budget? How many do they need as far as sworn? And then the mayor gives them that and works with them to create their budget. The mayor is not the one out on the street recruiting, and that's just not true. That's not what the mayor does. And so, you know, we have been working on increasing our number, which happened after the summer of 2020. I said before 17, 18, 19, we were almost fully staffed. Summer of 2020, George Floyd happened, then the movement across the country to defund, disassemble the police, and law enforcement agencies across the entire country suffered the same thing we did as far as the number of applicants for our police department were down, and it was down all over the country. Last year in 2024, I gave the police department a $9.8 million raise because we thought that's what it was salary. This year, we have an additional plan and the chief and I have worked on and to raise the number of officers, and we feel like we will be successful doing that.
John Ewing, 30 seconds.
Yes, there have been a number of organizations, number of cities who've contacted the city of Omaha in order to find out what we're doing. I've been on a lot of those calls because of my expertise and because of the work I did with the Empowerment Network to help develop that plan, and I will continue to be a part of that effort because I believe we can reduce violence across this country and certainly continue to reduce violence in the city of Omaha.
Gene Stothert, 30 seconds.
I think we couldn't be prouder of our crime statistics. The public knows about them. This year, the first quarter, that trend continues. That is just good policing in the city of Omaha, even when those numbers are down. We made a lot of new initiatives, another large salary increase, about another $12 million salary increase this year and next year. And what I said is we are the biggest law enforcement agencies in the state of Nebraska. We need to be the highest paid. So what we are offering now is we will always be 5% higher than any law enforcement agency in the state of Nebraska. And I feel like that will stop this cycle of everybody trying to catch up. And I think that will help us recruit and retain officers.
Gene Stothert, this next question goes to you first. Let's talk about the will of the people. Governor Pillen, after Nebraskans overwhelmingly voted to allow medical marijuana, told me that he knows things that perhaps the public doesn't, and seemingly didn't put much weight behind that vote. And we see this playing out in the legislature as it struggles to move forward with this issue. In fact, the Attorney General has urged lawmakers to do nothing. To many voters, it feels like hypocrisy at its finest. Celebrate the vote where Nebraskans narrowly reject a constitutional amendment for the right to abortion because your side wins, but blame voters for not knowing what they're doing when your issue loses. I mean, we're seeing minimum wage, paid sick leave, another example passed. I know it's a long question, but doesn't
really long.
All of this tie in? Many young people support these issues. Doesn't that go to retaining talent, keeping young people in Omaha?
Yes, I think it does. And we do watch very closely what goes on in the legislature through the League of Municipalities, which are all the mayors throughout the state of Nebraska. But my focus is on Omaha. And my focus in Omaha is what can we do here in Omaha and what can I do as a mayor to attract and retain young professionals that we are trying to attract for the jobs that we have here. And by the way, our unemployment rate in Omaha since I have been mayor has dropped from 4% to 2%. So I think that is a big accomplishment. What are young professionals looking for? It's not just what's going on in the legislature, although some of those issues absolutely are important. But young professionals in the city of Omaha are looking for affordable housing. They're looking for jobs. They're looking for public transportation, urban living, open spaces, entertainment. That's all what we are doing in our urban core, downtown and midtown. That's what we are doing to try to attract more young professionals so those jobs will follow. You know, it used to be that you would bring a business in and then the people will follow. It's quite different, especially when you have the situation like we do with a 2% unemployment rate. The jobs will come in, the businesses will come in, and they'll say, I want to be here in Omaha because the cost of living is very, very reasonable, but will I have enough employees to fill my business? So I feel like our job is to make Omaha the attractive city that businesses want to come to and young professionals will want to stay. And that's exactly what we are doing.
John Ewing, you have 90 seconds. I won't repeat the question because it's a long.
I believe those issues are extremely important. When we look at the will of the voters, we have to understand that we are their servants, their public servants, not the setter of what our policies and what our laws should be when they've spoken through the ballot initiative. So I believe we should be adhering to the will of the voters when they do that. Secondly, I do believe that that does have an impact on whether or not people believe your city is a city that is welcoming, a city that is inclusive, a city that is intentional about making sure everyone feels as if they belong. My goal as the next mayor is to ensure that people understand that Omaha is a welcoming city, that you will have a place here, you will be valued here, and you do belong, because that's what our young people want, in addition to public transportation, in addition to affordable housing, in addition to good paying jobs. They want to feel as if this is a welcoming community as well. And so we have to do everything we can to ensure that, because if we don't, it's going to be much more difficult to attract business. It's going to be much more difficult to attract young professionals and retain businesses and young professionals.
Gene Stothert, 30 seconds.
You know, that is exactly what we have done and what the trend that we have seen in the city of Omaha over the last 12 years. People are, you know, Forbes last year in 2024 ranked the city of Omaha as the #1 city in the United States to move to. The #1, we got 100 points out of 100 points. It was based on jobs, public safety, and employment. And that doesn't come easy. That is something that we have worked on, and the results are out there. U.S. News and World Report just ranked a few weeks ago Omaha as the hottest housing market in the entire country. These are things that we all together have worked on for the past 12 years, and the results right now is what we are seeing that is happening. It's making Omaha a much more attractive, desirable city for everyone to be in.
John Ewing.
Thank you. We are doing very well in some areas. To say we're not would be foolish. But when we talk about the hottest housing market and things of that nature, what we're really saying is that there are young people who no longer have the ability to afford the American dream and afford a home in Omaha. We've got to figure out how to really drill down on decent, affordable housing to provide that to all of the people of this community in order to continue our success.
Thank you. John Ewing, this one is for you. The Nebraska State Patrol has been hand-wringing over the number of people not just speeding, but doing well over 100 miles per hour. Sheriff has tried new things targeting street racers, take a look at the car, things of that nature. Iowa has not only speeding cameras that will mail you a ticket, hello Sioux City, but red light cameras in Council Bluffs that do the same. These problems exist in Omaha. Would you support those types of cameras here?
I would, because at the end of the day, the people in this room deserve to be able to drive on their streets. The people in this city deserve to be able to drive on their streets safely. I've been on the Dodge Expressway when you see someone coming up behind you and you know they're probably doing 90 miles an hour and you're looking for an escape route so you can be safe. One of the things that also is very important in this effort is to have traffic enforcement, and one of the things I've looked at with increasing the staffing of the Omaha Police Department is being able to be available for traffic enforcement and to try to address those issues as well, because I believe it's going to take the Omaha Police Department, it's going to take the State Patrol, it's going to take the Douglas County Sheriff's Office to be able to get this under control, because it has been a nightmare for some of the people in this community when they're driving on our streets and they see people running red lights, they see people exceeding the speed limit by 30 or 40 miles an hour. That is just dangerous for the people of this community, and I'm always going to support public safety.
Gene Stothert, a minute and a half.
First of all, red light cameras are very controversial because they don't always work. I mean, what if I am driving fast, my daughter's car, and then my daughter gets a call? They're controversial and they don't always work right. What I want to do is come up with a solution, especially for the speeders and especially for the street racing. A year or so ago down in Lincoln, there was some street racing that went into the crowd and killed several people. And that's going on in Omaha too. We had an instance several months ago of a Jeep that ran into a utility pole that was going over 170 miles per hour. And the driver was filming it with his GoPro, because that's what they do. What I want to do is solve that problem, and it can be solved with the Omaha Police Department, not just the Douglas County Sheriff's Department. What I have done is I had the law department write a new ordinance that has more penalties for street racing, not only for those driving fast and doing the street racing, but with street racing for the people that are there and spectators watching it too. This includes fines and it includes jail time. This is what we can do and enforce in the city of Omaha. So that's why I'm doing it through an ordinance. It's already had first reading on the city council agenda. It'll be second reading and public hearing coming up first. But as far as that goes, I want to come up with a solution for the problem and not just say, I'll work with the sheriff or I'll work with this person or that person. I want to go forward and solve this issue, and that is exactly what we're doing with this ordinance.
John Ewing, 30 seconds.
Well, I would certainly be in support of any ordinance that's going to make the streets of Omaha safer. I don't have any concerns about that whatsoever. My belief is that you have to have an enforcement approach as well, and to have the Omaha Police Department at full staffing allows them to be able to be more effective in monitoring our roads, and especially places where there is drag racing, street racing, excessive speeds. We've got to get the problem under control because people's lives are at risk.
And Gene Stothert, 30 seconds.
You know, another thing I did is I created a Vision Zero task force of citizens, and our goal with that is to eliminate traffic deaths in Omaha. That seems pretty lofty, but you can't say we want just one or two. We have to say we want to eliminate. Unfortunately, some of those numbers are going up right now because we still have a problem, but I am really focused on the recommendations from Vision Zero, what we can continue to do to make our streets safer. You know, most fatalities come from red light running and speeding. Those are the things that mostly cause accidents, and those are the things the Vision Zero Task Force is focused on. So I will continue working with them to keep all of our streets safer for all pedestrians and no matter which way you commute.
We'll stay here. Gene Stothert, you have the next question. Let's talk about the homeless population. First Alert 6 has covered several camps in Omaha in the last month where the sheriff and his team were difference makers for the neighborhood. What is the disconnect here between what those who live by these camps see and the rest of us and the government?
Well, the one camp that was on the news recently was on private property. So that gets a little bit, iffy about what the city can do on private property. But what I have done has made quite a big difference. I hired Tamara Dwyer, who is my homeless service coordinator, because there are multiple services throughout the city of Omaha, whether it's mental health, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's employment, to try to really dig in and solve this problem that we have with homeless. We don't have a huge problem, though, in Omaha. The homeless population in Omaha is less than 1% of our entire population. And when you look at homeless, you look at three different areas. You look at those that are sheltered, those that are in transitional housing, and those that are unsheltered. Our unsheltered population has increased a little bit, but it's because it was so low in the beginning. Right now, our total unsheltered population is about 300. When you heard statistics back in the primary that people were talking about, they were looking at a 3-county area. They were looking at Douglas, Pottawatomie, and Sarpy County. And they were looking at the number of homeless of the count that HUD does, usually every January. But since I've hired my homeless service coordinator, she has moved over 300 families, we call them families, whether they're one person or two persons or three people, into shelter or provided them the services that they need. In fact, she is even working on giving them Social Security cards so that they can get employment. So what we are doing is solving problems, coming up with a way and a system to solve problems and get the homeless out of that situation.
John Ewing, 90 seconds.
The reality is that we've seen a 1,200% increase according to the statistics that we've all seen. So it is a small problem, but it is a problem that is increasing. We need to look at a comprehensive approach to address the problem so it doesn't continue to grow out of control. We've got to look at mental health issues. We've got to look at drug addiction issues. We've got to look at services for our veterans. We've got to look at how we are going to partner with the existing shelters now so that we can increase capacity, but also so we can increase their flexibility so people who choose to stay out on the street because they're a man and a woman and don't want to be separated, or they have pets and they don't want to be separated from their pets, we can figure out a way to provide them shelter. We also have to look at making sure that we are providing more decent and affordable housing in Omaha, because that's part of the issue as well. When people can't afford the rents that are being charged, we've got to say, how do we partner with the agencies and the city to address this issue in a comprehensive approach, because that's the only way we're going to solve it.
Jean Stothert, 30 seconds.
That is exactly what the homeless service coordinator is doing in my office, and she's so busy she has hired an assistant now. It's coordinating all the services that are out there now and getting these folks out of the homeless situation. That 1,200% piece of information that my opponent just said is very misleading, because the 1,200% is only the unsheltered. It is not those that are in shelter, those that are in transitional housing, and it is in a 3-county area. The city of Omaha, like I said before, we had about 40 homeless, unsheltered about 12 years ago. Now we have 300. So the number is very low still, and that's where that 1,200% came from. But the last address of over half of those unsheltered was Council Bluffs. So keep in mind, we're looking at a 3-county area.
John Ewing, 30 seconds.
The reality is it was a 1,200% increase of unsheltered homeless people in this community. We have to look at the fact that that is a significant increase, and if we don't get this problem under control, it is only going to continue to grow. We have neighborhoods where homeless encampments have started to spread into their neighborhoods, and that impacts their quality of life. We've got to work together to figure this out.
Next question for Mr. Ewing. Next week is the 1-year anniversary of the devastating tornadoes that swept from Waverly to Elkhorn to Blair into Iowa. And then in the same year, hurricane-like winds, all sorts of damage, power outages, a blizzard that, tens of millions of dollars of infrastructure and people's lives. With specifics, and maybe an explanation to voters, is there a way that you talk to voters about how climate impacts wallets and what a city does about it?
Well, first, let me express my condolences to those people in our community who suffered loss. I think it's critically important that they know that we care about them and their families. I think it's critically important that we recognize that climate impact is impacting the weather across this world, and that the earth is heating up, and if we don't take measures to address those internationally, nationally, in state level government as well as local government, we are not going to be able to stop the devastating weather patterns that we are seeing across this country. So I think it's critically important that we develop and continue to improve the plan that was approved by the City Council to address climate change, because it's not going to get any better by accident. It's only going to get better if we do intentional things to address the issue.
Jean Stothert, 1:30.
Sure. I'd like to remind people, we had a flood, and then we had tornadoes, and then we had the terrible windstorm that just swept through the city. After that windstorm, it was the first time we have ever done this, but I directed Public Works to do a citywide cleanup. We started on the east side and went west. We worked on it for months, but it was a major cleanup, but we felt like because of the devastation, we had to do it, and the city had to take part in it. And I think you've seen on the news in the last weekend or so, all of the debris, especially the limbs and the trees that the city picked up for no charge to the residents, we ground them up, and now this past weekend, we were telling people they could come and get free mulch. So we're trying to continue to do the things that we need to do and still provide the best service we can for the citizens. We do have a climate action plan. It was one that I assigned one of my deputy chiefs of staff to work on. It is totally grant funded at this time. No taxpayer dollars have gone into it. But there's a lot of things we are already doing as far as to address what is going on and to make our environment cleaner. For example, with our new state-of-the-art trash collection service that we have with FCC that was negotiated in 2010, and no, 2020, I'm sorry, and it's a 10-year contract with the option of 2 5-year. But with all of the trucks now are powered with compressed natural gas, not diesel anymore. The trash collection itself, the number of recyclables have increased 40% with the new trash collection system that we have. So we are always looking at and continue to look at different ways that we can be more environmentally friendly, but there's a lot that we have already done.
John Ewing, 30 seconds.
One of the things I would say to the people of this community is that I believe leadership is about showing you care, because I don't believe people care how much you know until they know how much you care. When we had those devastating issues in this community, my wife and I volunteered to support families and support the cleanup and also support distribution of supplies for the people in this community. And that's the kind of mayor I'm going to be.
Next question to Gene Stothert. On your watch, the city had to shut down Legacy Crossing Apartments in Northwest Omaha. City View Apartments seem like a bad movie repeating for the tenants there. We just had a fatal shooting Sunday at Florence Towers, freaking out neighbors for good reason. What does safe, affordable housing seem to be in slow motion?
Well, I don't think it's in slow motion. I'm going to talk about these issues in just a second. But, we have partnered with Front Porch. With our COVID money, the city has put in the major investment that we had with the COVID money was $20 million into affordable housing. And another good example of a public-private partnership, we got a $20 million match from Front Porch, from the private sector. Our goal was to create about 3,800 new affordable housing units in the city of Omaha a year. We didn't quite reach it last year, but it was about 3,300. It was much more than we had in the past. And so we continue with that plan to build more affordable housing. And the issue is it's not affordable to developers to build. And so we are doing what we can as far as city zoning. We have now a HAP plan, we call it, the Housing Affordable Action Plan. We have addressed city policy, we've addressed city code. We are trying to make it easier and more economical for developers to build affordable housing. One of the things that we did with the city is we assembled a lot of lots that we owned. We're not building houses anymore like we used to. And we were selling lots, city-owned lots, for $1 to a developer that would build affordable housing units. We have also decreased the width that properties have to be on a block, so we could put more housing on a block now. So we are doing a lot of things already with the city of Omaha to address affordable housing, and I never did get to the other issue. I'm being told
Well,
to
you'll
stop.
have 30 seconds.
Okay,
again.
all right.
John Ewing, a minute and a half.
I've been a person who's worked diligently on the issue of decent and affordable housing. And I say it that way because I was on the board of Habitat for Humanity for 6 years and hired Amanda Brewer, who is still the executive director, almost 20 years ago. I believe we have to be willing to do partnerships. We have to be willing to look at zoning and increasing density in order to be able to build decent affordable housing. I was also part of the development of the land bank legislation to help accumulate lots so that we could have those available for building. When it comes to places like City View, Legacy Crossing, OHA Towers with the bed bugs, I believe that's unacceptable in Omaha, Nebraska. I believe we have to look at ensuring that we have the code enforcement that's necessary. We have the requirements for ownership or whatever it may take in order to be able to get people to honor the lease agreements that people have signed, but also to maintain those properties when a new person or new company comes in and purchases those properties, because that's one of the things that we're seeing. So we have to have a comprehensive approach that looks at enforcement and looks at partnerships so that we can build the houses we need, but so we can also ensure that those apartment complexes are safe for our people.
Gene Stothert, 30 seconds.
I would suggest my opponent looks at what is existing with our Housing and Affordability Action Plan, because a lot of the things he mentioned we are already doing, in the process of doing, or they are already done. And we already have really good partnerships with nonprofits like Habitat. We work with them all the time, and we use TIF also to help Habitat for some of their developments to make it easier for them to develop in certain areas. Now, as far as City View and Legacy, I have to say we are under a strict federal court order that was filed against the city many years ago that doesn't allow our city inspectors to go into a building unless there is a complaint filed. So we need to encourage people to file complaints, and then our city inspectors could go in.
John Ewing.
One of the most important parts of being a leader, especially in elected office, is being responsive to the people of this community. I believe when there's responsiveness, people will come forward and provide you with those complaints and other issues so that you can take the action that's necessary to ensure that these buildings are safe.
All right, I'm checking my clock, and we are out of questions and are out of time. I have plenty of questions. Now we'll go to closing statements, which a coin flip determined the order. Gene Stothert, you're first. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the League of Women Voters, the Press Club, WOWT, for holding this, and it allows me to talk about what we have done in the past and what our vision is for the future. There is a reason why Forbes ranked Omaha, Nebraska as the #1 city to move to in 2024, ranked on safety, affordability, and employment. And that's hard to beat #1. I will say we need steady leadership, we need initiative, we need commitment to continue this great momentum we have to build a stronger city for tomorrow. My priorities are all based on what your priorities are. First, public safety. Second, lower taxes, controlling the city budget. Third, economic development. We are working on all of those things, and we have good results. #1, we have shown that we have lowered the tax levy in Omaha. It is the lowest it's been since 2010. Our crime rates are at an all-time low. Development is at an all-time high. We have invested millions of dollars in affordable housing, and we are fixing our roads that were neglected for years and years at an all-time pace. When I became mayor, I said I will be the mayor for everyone, and I meant that. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, whether you're black or white or brown, what your age is. I have been the mayor for everybody, and I've been responsible, and I have been out there talking to the people. Since I have been mayor, I've given 70 town hall meetings. I do 7 every fall in every city council district. We had to stop during COVID, but we continued them now to get out there and talk to the people and see what their issues are. Cities never stand still. They are either moving forward and growing, or they are declining and falling behind. I want to keep Omaha, Nebraska moving forward, and that's why I am running for mayor again. I think together we have turned vision into results. I think we have met and exceeded goals, and I think we have empowered citizens and empowered the neighborhoods. I would love to have your vote. I'm asking for your vote. I love working with you and for you, and I look forward to another 4 years of serving with you to move Omaha forward.
John Ewing, you get the last word, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, and WOWT for hosting this event. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, great partners in our community as well. The most important thing that an elected official can do is be responsive. And I think earlier this week we saw an example of a lack of responsiveness from city government when people contacted me to say, hey, we've got this sinkhole. We still haven't heard anything from the city. We haven't heard anything about when repairs might start, what this all looks like. We are just confused as to what the process should be. And I told them that I would listen and that I would stand with them as we looked at how we were going to be able to support them. If I had been mayor at the time, we would have had a very simple process, sit down with everybody involved and make sure that we all come up with a comprehensive plan, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, get it resolved for the people of this community. I believe it's critically important that we are responsive as leaders in this community. I've also heard every day about the condition of our streets, and I saw a commercial recently talking about the streets being neglected for decades. I believe that was 12 years under the mayor's current administration where the streets were neglected as well, and that's why people complain about their streets as one of the #1 complaints. I will listen to them, I will address those issues, and I will get things done for the people of this community, because that's who I work for. That's who I worked for 43 years. And if you like what I've done as Douglas County Treasurer, you're going to love what I'm going to do as your next mayor. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you all for watching, and I would like to have your vote on May 13th.
That's it. All right, Gene Stothert, John Ewing, thank you very much. Thank you to the Omaha Press Club Education Committee, the League of Women Voters, Greater Omaha. Look, this is an important part of our democracy, and we're proud to showcase it. Election Day, May 13th. I'm Brian Mastre. We'll see you next time.
Hello, everyone. Jacqueline Fernandez here at the Alert Center. Thank you so much for sticking with us for an hour plus at this point for our debate with our Brian Mastre, who is hosting the debate, or was hosting the debate earlier today for us. The debate starting right at noon and ending right at 1 o'clock. Just wanted to go over a few things. Was taking notes throughout the debate, jotting down some of Brian Mastre's questions to the mayor hopeful John Ewing and incumbent Gene Stothert for who will be the next mayor of the city of Omaha. Of course, we want you to get out there and vote that election date, May 13th. Now, the primary, we knew that was not going to gather a lot of voters for the first time around. I believe about 25% actually came out and voted. We were looking for something like 30%, which is still, of course, very low, but again, only 25%. So clearly, we will have a lot more people come out for this general election. The first question that Brian Mastre did ask the candidates today was, do you consider yourself vulnerable in a Democratic city? And this first question was, of course, addressed to Republican candidate Gene Stothert. And the way she answered this question, she talked a lot about knocking on doors. Getting the independent and Democratic votes and Republican votes. She said, she wanted to see, kind of meet people where they are, and she wanted to just make note that, she said that she's a mayor for everybody when she first started out about, years ago now, running for office, and she says that is what she has done. John Ewing, meantime, said he has 65% of the voters during the primary election said that they're ready for a new mayor, and that is what he has learned. Said he delivers great government. He's been voted in clearly as Douglas County Treasurer and will do an even better job as mayor, touting the differences with better handling of public services. He did mention public parks and public safety and these types of things. Let me kind of go through my notes here and see if I can find another question. Oh yes, this is one of a contentious debate that is still happening. So the streetcar, whether you're for it or against it, the question about the streetcar from our Brian Mastre. So this one directed to John Ewing. So he said, Ewing told the voters there's no reason to stop the streetcar, whether you think it's disastrous or not. So going ahead with the streetcar, if Mr. Ewing does win the mayoral vote, what would be different as we progress the idea of having this streetcar? So, he says get as much development for the streetcar and then lessen the impact of taxpayer dollars is what he mentioned. He said he wanted to expand the streetcar, though, to various spots. He mentioned the ballpark, the zoo, and the airport. Gene Stothert, on the other hand, did mention this funding model currently under her administration is not intending to raise any taxes anywhere. She says the idea is that this would be a catalyst for economic development, and then did say that based off of their research, they're anticipating to make roughly $2 billion in the first 3 years just with the current route that the streetcar has in place now. And she said there have been studies done and additional possibilities for expansion of these routes. That's another question that our Brian Mastre did ask our candidates. going through some of these questions now. I don't want to hit every single question. It is possible for you to watch the debate in its entirety. Clearly, we have live streamed it for you, and you can watch that on our website at firstalert6.com. Now, the debate will air in its entirety on our channel. That's Cozy 6.2 on Friday, April 18th at 7 p.m. So that's something to mark your calendars if you'd like to see all the oohs and ahs and get a take on, you know, the body language of incumbent Jean Stothert and John Ewing for mayor. So let's see where the next question is that I'd like to address with you. Oops. A lot of good questions from our Brian Mastre, I should say that, as I kind of continue to take a look through our notes here. Okay. I'm sorry? No, I'm still going. That's okay. Okay. Okay, so one thing that was mentioned was, you know, questions of the homeless population and how each candidate would pursue that in moving forward. Current Mayor Jean Stothert said there are different ways to address the homeless situation based on the different types of homelessness. So she did say a homeless camp is different depending on if that camp is on private property. She said the city is limited, of course, if this land is considered private property. She does have a homeless service coordinator that she said is important. She does say that sheltered, transitional, and unsheltered homeless population, while it is going up, she said it is still a very low number here in the city of Omaha at approximately 300 people. John Ewing did say that 1,200% increase in homelessness is what he's seen and what he's heard, and he said overall this is a small population increase, and to which Jean Stothert replied and said that this is a confusing statistic. She said the homeless coordinator says that while they are working with that, that is really in a 3-county area, that 1,200%, and that is not directly the city of Omaha. So a lot of back and forth on this question, and a lot of potentially confusing answers depending on where you think that 1,200% does come from. So that is one thing. Brian also asked questions about the climate impact and how each candidate would move forward with that. Moving forward here, I think one thing that was of note that I would like to mention about candidate John Ewing. John Ewing did talk a lot about affordable housing, and one thing that really caught my attention was that he does say decent affordable housing. So you want a place where you and your family would actually want to live, not some place that, you know, isn't cut out for, you know, the general public, someplace that you would be proud to call home. So decent affordable housing is one thing that John Ewing says. As far as affordable housing, Jean Stothert says the plan that she has in place for affordable housing is working. She says she's trying to get more developers in place to buy some of the land. You'll recall First Alert 6 did report on having some of that land for sale for $1 in certain spots of town to try to get developers to come in and be responsible for that land to develop into property specifically used for affordable housing. So those are some of the things that they are focusing on. And then to just kind of finally to recap some of those closing statements, Jean Stothert was the one who started with the closing statements. She did mention that Forbes ranked Omaha the #1 city to move to, and that was based off 3 things: safety, affordability, and employment. She said you need steady leadership, commitment, priorities, public safety. She talked about taking care of taxes and managing the city budget, economic development, those things. She said she wants you to get out there and vote for her for the next 4 years for mayor. She wants empowered citizens to vote for her, and she's excited to be your mayor for the next 4 years. Of course, you have to get out there on May 13th. John Ewing, meantime, said in his closing statements, he said the most important thing is that elected officials are responsive to what you want. And he did mention a specific story that did air here on First Alert 6, this sinkhole downtown that has, by some of the people's own words that they've said, has gone neglected by this city. They've spray painted kind of a sign over this sinkhole, and they're kind of wondering what the next steps are. And John Ewing says that, as your next mayor, he will be the person on site. He will be responsive. So he will be the person who's going to come up with, the plan. So he did kind of mention different steps. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, to kind of get these things done. He also mentioned poor streets out there. So he said the streets have been neglected for decades under the current administration. And he says he wants your vote on May 13th to make sure that this doesn't continue to happen. So in a nutshell, that is basically what we've been hearing. If you've joined us for the entire debate between incumbent Mayor Gene Stothert and mayoral candidate John Ewing. This is the debate that was hosted by our Brian Mastre here at First Alert 6. And if you did miss some of it, we do have a recording that's available for you on our website. That's firstalert6.com. Also, the debate will air in its entirety on Cozy 6.2. That's on Friday, April 18th at 7 p.m. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Now, in the meantime, just want to head over to our website so you can see what I'm talking about. Again, firstalert6.com. And we do have this live Omaha mayoral debate right here available for you. So all you have to do is click here and you can watch that full debate if you're interested. But please do stay tuned for our broadcast at 3 o'clock with Dave Zavolinsky. We'll have all the latest stories our digital team and our producers and anchors have been working on, including our reporters as well. So stay tuned for that. We'll see you then.